nurses have the responsibility to report patient safety concerns, things of that nature. That didn't appear, or that if it did appear, it was more theoretical in the previous editions.
Welcome back to the Nursing Home Abuse Podcast. My name is Rob. I will be your host for this episode. Today we're talking about the American Nurses Association, their code of ethics, and some recent changes, and then some some changes to the changes. But we're not doing that. We're certainly not doing that alone today. There's no way I could do that. We have the fantastic Matthew Garvey on to walk us through this process. Before we get into that, it is time for the nursing home regulation question of the week, and another opportunity for you to completely give me the cold shoulder, give me the stiff arm on winning a Nursing Home Abuse Podcast mug. That's right. This is your chance to win a Nursing Home Abuse Podcast mug. Drink your morning coffee out of it. It's a fantastic mug. Goes great with anything. How do you win this, you might ask? Well, go to our TikTok, which is at Justice for Residents, and find the question of the week video. This particular question of the week video, the thumbnail will be the movie Argo, like the movie poster for the Ben Affleck movie where they had to get the hostages. I guess they weren't hostages. They were kind of the Americans that were in the embassy, hiding out in the Canadian embassy. That movie. Look for that thumbnail. Comment your answer to the nursing home regulation question of the week, as well as your favorite movie that won the Oscar for Best Picture. So if you remember that Argo won, see, you thought that I was going to say The Departed. You thought that The Departed would be my favorite movie ever that has won the Oscar for Best Picture, but that is not true. It is Argo. Argo is my favorite movie that has also won an Oscar. What's your favorite? It could be Moonlight, Shape of Water, 12 Years a Slave, King's Speech. It could be something like From the Very Beginning. I think maybe Casablanca or something like that. Whatever you want. You put your answer, you put your favorite movie that has won an Oscar for Best Picture, and you will be in a random selection process. But again, no one ever does this. Gene makes me do it. Gene makes me go through this whole script. But anyway, that's how you enter to win. The winner is announced on Sundays on our website, which is schenkfirm.com/podcast/giveaway. The mug is shipped at the end of the month. Good luck to you. Difficulty for this question, folks, I'm going to say is hard. Not extremely hard, but fairly hard. So if you get this right, you are an honorary nursing home nurse. Under 42 CFR 483.30C, how often is a physician required to visit a resident at the nursing home? Is it A, every 30 days for the first 90 days, B, every 7 days for the first 30 days, or C, once at admission, then once every 30 days for the first 90 days? And that answer is A. An attending physician must visit the resident every 30 days for the first 90 days. There is no requirement that the physician has to be there immediately at admission. Now it's time to get into the meat and potatoes of the episode. Again, we're talking about the American Nurses Association Code of Ethics and recent changes and exactly what the American Nurses Association is. But we're not doing that alone. Certainly not. We have the fantastic Matthew Garvey on today. Matthew Garvey, DNP, MBA, RN, is the founder of Garvey Consulting and Education Services. With a background in critical care, emergency nursing, and healthcare leadership, he brings valuable clinical insight to legal nurse consulting. He currently works in utilization management, emergency nursing, and as DNP adjunct faculty. Matthew is also pursuing his Juris Doctor degree at the University of Dayton, which I didn't know that. I should have asked him about that. Sorry about that, Matthew. Further expanding his expertise at the intersection of healthcare and law, Matthew does, in fact, work with attorneys in nursing home cases, providing merit reviews, deposition preparation, things like that. Very knowledgeable guy. Very happy to have him on the show. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks. So glad to be here.
All right. So here's the softball of softball questions for you, starting off. Okay. What is the American Nurse Association?
Yeah, great question. So the American Nurses Association is the professional association that represents the millions of nurses around the country, whether they are a member or not. So it is what you would consider our flagship professional organization. Doesn't require a certain specialty, nothing of that nature. Just that you be a nurse, and they fight for us, right? So they have a lobbying arm, they have an education arm, and they essentially just provide resources to nurses, fight for nurses, and then represent the nurses within the United States.
Tell me about the ANA's code of ethics.
Yeah, so the ANA produces a code of ethics. They have, I think, since the 1950s, maybe 1980, somewhere in there. They produced their first one, but it provides an ethical code for nurses in the United States to follow. It's one of the only ethical codes that is generalized to all nurses in the United States. Now, there are several other codes if you look at like the international organizations and things of that nature. But essentially, the American Nurses Association produces this code of ethics. It's a book. It's available online for free, but you can also buy a paperback book. They revise it every 10 years. They actually just revised their code of ethics. So they produced their 2025 revision in January. And as you may be aware, they quickly released an errata sheet in February and changed quite a bit of language in it. But that code of ethics is really the guiding light of ethical practice for nurses, regardless of specialty, essentially regardless of the type of nurse, LPN, RN, nurse practitioner, whatever nursing specialty they may be. It is the essential guiding light of ethical practice for nurses in the United States.
If you're a nurse, doesn't matter what you are, you're in Utah, you're in Georgia, you're in New York, okay? I assume you're bound by whatever your state regulations are with respect to how you should act. What is the code of ethics do? Like, is it a guideline? Do you mean like you got to do it? Are you going to jail if you don't follow it?
Yeah, great questions. So you're correct. The standard of practice, the State Practice Act, is going to guide the actual practice of nursing in each particular state. A lot of them look similar, but they differ, as you know, from state to state. The Nursing Code of Ethics is more of a guideline, I would say. It is more of, I think the ANA would describe it. Again, I don't work for them. I don't speak for them, but as an aspirational goal, it provides the model conduct. It doesn't just relate to care. So it's not just looking at care at the bedside, but rather the ethical practice of a nurse holistically. So what the nurse should give back to society globally, what they should give to a patient, what they should give to themselves, what they should give to their colleagues. It's more of that aspirational guide. I will tell you that in years past, before this 2025 revision, it was I wouldn't even say 10,000 foot, probably a 30,000, 50,000 foot view, right? It was very aspirational, very theoretical. But the 2025 revision gives us a very more prescriptive look. So there are there's lots of language in there about what nurses should do that is very, how do I say this? That's very specific. Like, nurses have the responsibility to put patient and residents before the organization. Nurses have the responsibility to report patient safety concerns, things of that nature. That didn't appear, or that if it did appear, it was more theoretical in the previous editions.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's do this. So there were the recent changes, and there was the errata. So tell me, like, just the top couple changes that were made and why you think that. And again, Matthew does not represent the ANA. He has come here out of the goodness of his heart to talk about this with me today. So, okay. So Matthew, what are a couple of the major things that were changed, and why did they kind of go back on that?
So I can't tell you the why. That's one of the things that's very odd about the entire thing, is the ANA has been pretty quiet about it. They haven't really said. If you bought the book before the changes were made, or you bought the ebook or the physical book, you got an email that said a month later, "Hey, here's the errata sheet." It was 5 full 8.5 by 11 pages of changes, so quite a bit of change. But they really didn't say why. Now, I can tell you from looking at that errata sheet, a lot of the changes were changing compulsory language, which in the legal field, we love to talk about compulsory language, to very permissive language. So there was lots of changes from a nurse must to a nurse ought to, or a nurse should, which, a lot of the work I do as a legal nurse consultant, both behind the scenes and as a testifying expert, that now creates some ambiguity, right? And so one of the things that I'm looking at is I'm going to be asked this, right, in a deposition. The ANA Code of Ethics is used a lot when it comes to nursing negligence, just as evidentiary support. Should a nurse have done this? Well, the Code of Ethics says this. Should they have acted in this manner? And so now there are two versions, and there are really no specific statements from the ANA. So I anticipate being asked in depositions, what are you aware that their revision was made in, January 2025? Are you aware that there was an errata sheet in February? Why did this happen? Must a nurse act in this way, or should they ought to act in this way? I think it creates some ambiguity there that really is going to stump and really change how we can view a nurse's practice when it comes to expert work. Um,
Typically what type of case or what type of action or intervention are you being asked about in which the code of ethics is coming out as a, hey, this potentially is maybe not the standard of care, but maybe illustrative of what the person should have done?
Yeah, it really applies to all. In all cases, you can bring it in. I've been asked about it in fall cases before. I've been asked about it in cases where like a criminal and this wasn't a testifying expert work case, but in cases where there is obvious diversion on behalf of a nurse or obvious neglect on behalf of a nurse, and they bring in this code of ethics. Again, it's an aspirational code that we should live by as a nurse. That's what we are told. You would live by this goal, and so it really calls into question: did a nurse act in accordance with it? And if so, not necessarily was it a deviation from the standard of care, because it doesn't necessarily relate to bedside care, but was it a deviation in what we would expect a reasonable nurse to do? I will say it's used a lot as well in administrative law. I won't say used a lot, but it is a guiding light for that as well. In that, when a nurse has a DUI or is involved in criminal activity, that violates the code of ethics. And so you'll see it brought in there as well, where you'll see some administrative law boards of nursing saying, well, your actions violated our code of ethics, that we are held to as a profession.
I feel like sometimes it's you get into that line of questioning where it's like, well, it's just a guideline, or it's, I don't have to follow it. And the question would be then, well, can you disregard it completely? And you're in an area where it's like, well, you can't disregard it, but at the same time, it's not something that's necessarily compulsory, and you're kind of in like a no man's land, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. You're kind of stuck there.
Yeah.
And that's that's what you're taught as a nurse, that it's not mandatory. There is no, they have no administrative authority. The American Nurses Association doesn't, but it is just the same as like a treatise would be persuasive for a court.
Mhm.
It is also persuasive in that manner for nursing, right? It's one of those things that the nursing profession looks at and holds in high regard, and is very persuasive in determining if a nurse did in fact act reasonably or not. But you're correct. It has no binding weight. A nurse is not bound by the code of ethics per se.
How often is it changed? You might have mentioned this, so I apologize, but is this something like,
Okay.
is it every 30 years, every 2 years?
No, so it's every 10 years. And I think that that's written into the bylaws of the ANA, that they will revise it every 10 years. So just had a revision 2025. I will say that when that happens, so you're looking ahead at what 2034 when they start preparing for the next one, they do a very open public comments time where anybody can come on and give public comments. In fact, I did this time for this revision, and so nurses, attorneys, family members, patients, anyone public can come online and give their comments, and then the official revision will come out in the January of 20 or this time 2035.
And are you once you get your certification in whatever state you are for your nurse, your registration, whatever you call it, are you automatically enrolled in the ANA, or is it like you got to pay the dues?
Yeah, you have to pay your dues. And that can be a source of contention for many nurses is that if we're held to this book that an organization produces, why do I have to pay to be a part of it?
Hmm.
And essentially they fight for you as a nurse. And so that's the rebuttal to that, right? Is we have to have revenue in order to do the things we do to fight for the professional practice. But it is not mandatory. It is a professional organization, just like any professional organization would be. You pay monthly dues or an annual due, and then you get the benefit.
And who's the like? I guess. Well, I guess this makes sense. Like, so there are elections, so that the committee that's in charge of the code of ethics, I'm sure, there's a vote to put them in place, or whatever.
Yeah, there are several. It's an entire board, especially
Mhm.
whenever it comes to the revision. So in the code of ethics, you can see all the members of the board who put together this new revised edition. And then there are also
They're getting angry emails and angry phone
they are
calls.
probably, yes, they are getting angry emails, I'm sure, of like, why is this changing? What happened? And so there's a board. Also, the ANA does, they have a commitment to ethics as part of, their infrastructure. And so both the national and the state chapters have an ethics and human rights committee as well, that provide input, that promote the code of ethics, provide education, and so forth.
So what kind of cases are you called to testify on? Like, where what kind of cases are you providing expert testimony for?
Sure. So my clinical background is both emergency department and ICU. It depends, as you know, expert requirements vary by jurisdiction. So in some jurisdictions, I can provide both. ER is what I still currently do. And so I do provide a lot of ER expert work. I also have served as a house administrator for a hospital system, multiple hospital systems. And so I do some of that work as well, more of the general nursing expert work. A lot of cases that I'm taking right now are falls cases, are failure to diagnose in the emergency department, wrongful death in the emergency department, those cases. I also have quite a bit of experience in patient logistics and transfer center operations. That is a pretty niche market. Finding an expert who has worked in a transfer center is difficult.
Sure.
And so I also do expert work around surrounding that as well. Transfer center operations, EMTALA, patient logistics, throughput, those kinds of things.
So you're like a real gunner. Like that's what we would have said in law school. Like you're a guy that goes and gets it, like does a lot of different stuff, gets the good grades.
Yeah.
Well, which makes sense that you know about this code of ethics, right? So let me ask this, and obviously I mean, how can you know this? So I'm just asking you to speculate. But like, how many nurses in this country, other than maybe there was a class in nursing school or to receive whatever certification, like it's not as though they have this book at their house, right? Like how often are you coming into contact with the ANA's code of ethics?
Yeah, great question. And you're correct. So in nursing school, actually, it may be mentioned, maybe in your professional leadership course. It's rare. It's very rare that anyone brings it up. It's rare that even, I've worked in administration for quite some time. It's rare that even I, as an administrator, would bring up the code of ethics. Saying that, as you move higher in academia, you do get exposed to it. So the higher you move, I have a doctorate degree in nursing. In my master's and in my doctorate, we did talk about it, which is interesting because most nurses are at the ground level. And so that's where we should have that information located. Um, what I tell people though is when I offer classes on protecting your license or protecting your practice, those kinds of things, I tell all nurses, regardless, it's like the law, it's like the speed limit, right? Regardless of your ignorance to it, you can
Oh
still
yeah.
be held to it. And so you need to know it's there, you need to read it. How many of them do after I tell them that? I'm not really sure, but it is, I will say that there are probably a minority of nurses who have actually read it and know what is in the actual code of ethics from cover to cover. Some of them may be familiar with certain provisions of it, depending upon things that they're involved in, unionizing activities, those kinds of things. If they're involved in any committees within the hospital organization, they may know a few of the provisions, but I would say it's a minority of nurses who've read it cover to cover.
Well, if there are any nurses out there in the audience listening and that you're a member of the Dirty Dozen that actually listen to the show, take Matthew's advice and read the ANA's Code of Ethics. But Matthew, we really very much appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your knowledge with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to come back anytime.
Well, folks, I hope you found that episode educational. If you have an idea for a topic that you would like for me to discuss, please let me know. If you have an idea for a person that you would like for me to talk to, please let me know that as well. New episodes of the Nursing Home Abuse Podcast come out every week. And as always, please make sure that you continue to ignore my desperate pleas for you to try to win this coffee mug, the Nursing Home Abuse coffee mug. My wife is going to divorce me if I don't get rid of these 2 gigantic boxes of coffee cups from my house. So, tell me what your favorite movie is that has won an Oscar. There's so many options. How many years has the Oscars been around? Was Casablanca one? I don't care. Just tell any movie. Give me your favorite movie. I'll give you this mug. I'll give you 2 mugs. It can be the Oscar for key grip. Cinematography, that's a good one. Any movie, any motion picture, it can be a home movie. I don't care. Just put it in there. TikTok, @Justice for Residents, question of the week video. It's got Argo on it. Put your answer. Good luck. And with that, folks, we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to the Nursing Home Abuse Podcast. Nothing said on this podcast, either by the host or the guest, should be construed as legal or medical advice, nor is intended to create an attorney-client relationship between the host or their guest and the listener. New episodes for now are available every other Monday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on your favorite podcast app, as well as on YouTube and our website, nursinghomeabusepodcast.com. Again, that's nursinghomeabusepodcast.com. See you next time.